Hello, and welcome to another wonderful episode of the D Hope podcast, where we share stories of resiliency. And today, who we have with us is the one and only daughter of David and Donna, me being Donna, and the sister of Michael and Marcus, and the mother of Taylor and Teagan, who have
Yes,
their own show, by the way.
that's
So
awesome.
we welcome Moniko Moore. Woo!
Yay.
Hi, thank y'all for having me.
You are welcome. And so
Wait, I'm sorry. Do you go by Monika or I was calling you Niko?
I
Niko.
go by Niko.
she
Oh, you
goes
go
by
by
Nico.
Niko.
I was
Okay.
just I was
Yeah.
just putting all of her government information
Yeah,
out there.
yeah.
Yeah. So you can be Googled and really found.
Oh yeah, for sure. For sure.
What? Yeah, so we call her Nico.
Niko. I like that.
Yes.
Me too.
And it's easier for people too, because for all of her life, her bless her heart, her little name has just been she's been Monica, she's been Miko, she's been a lot.
Monique,
Yeah, Monique, she's
a lot of things.
yeah.
Do you just answer to it?
I always know that they're talking about me, so I vividly remember being in school and new teachers trying to pronounce my name, and I'm just like, I'm here. I'm here. I'm right here.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just difficult for people to say Moniko. I guess because Monica is just such a prevalent.
Probably, yeah.
They just assume it's Monica, but yeah. So Moniko is going to share a story with us, a story of resiliency,
Yeah.
and that she's still being resilient from.
God.
So tell us about having twins, which Hope has twins as well. Having twins, your first time having children ever.
You know.
I wait. Hold on, just a second. I have to ask before we get started.
Yes.
Do you want any more kids after having twins first?
Listen, I get this question all the time. Like, there are some days where I see smaller little babies and I'm like, oh, one more couldn't hurt. And then I see Taylor and Teagan and I'm like, one more could absolutely hurt. So
Yeah.
so maybe, I don't know. Maybe not. We'll just see what God has for me later down the line.
Yes. Yes. So tell us about being, because she was in college when she found out that she was pregnant. She was actually on summer break from college. So tell.
How old were you?
I was 19 because I had them when I was 20.
Yes.
Okay.
I was 20. Yeah, so I was
no. You were 20.
I was 20 when I found out. Had them when I was 21. That's right. Well, before I turned 21. Right before I turned 21.
Yeah, because you
because I didn't do anything for my 21st because I was a mom.
Yeah.
I was a mother.
Yeah.
So I was out of school at my grandmother's house for the summer out of college, and thought never crossed my mind. I woke up one morning and I quite literally was not well. I was not well, felt like I was dying, which is what I went and told my grandmother. I was like, hey, so I think I need to go get looked at because I feel like I'm dying.
Yeah.
And as a grandmother, she went into just panic mode, like, okay, we gotta go. So we went to the urgent care and they were running all of these tests and doing all of these things. And the nurse came in and she handed me a paper that was like folded up, like closed. And she was like, hey, you should, take a look at that. And I was like, what do you mean? It felt like I was in like high school again, or in my younger years when I was in school, and like maybe I failed a test and it was just like, here, I'm just gonna hand you this. So I opened it and it was like it had my full name on it. It was like Moniko Moore, tested positive and she's pregnant or whatever. And I folded it back up and I slid it back to her. I said, "No, ma'am, I don't know. We're not gonna do that." She was like, "Yeah, congratulations." And so I told my grandma was in there. She was like, "What's going on? What's happening?" And I was like, "I'm having a kid." And it was just like shell shock because I'm like, what is happening? Like I'm in college. I don't know what's going on. Clearly there's a kid. We don't know what's happening. I don't know how far along I am. I had no idea that this was a thing because for years I was kind of like in my friend group, we always talked about it and we were like, oh no, that could like never be us. No,
Yeah.
we're not gonna be parents. And
Mm.
it happened and I was like, oh Jesus, I don't know what I'm gonna do. Like I don't know what I'm gonna do from this point because I'm still in school, I'm still young, I don't know anything about anything. I haven't even lived life really yet. So what are we gonna do? And so I left there. I was just very distraught, very shell shocked. I the first person I let know was their biological father. And that was a whole deal. Um he was not very supportive in any of it and has not been very supportive
today.
yeah today.
Were y'all dating? Were y'all dating at the time? Were y'all a thing, or
he
was this just kind of like
we
a
had been a thing,
thing
yes, we
that
were a thing.
happened a night?
Yeah, we were a thing, so there was no
Okay.
in my mind for me to feel like he would not be supportive,
Okay.
but people show who they are and we just kind of have to go with it. So
So let me before you go on. So like the so before the summer break, because she came home, it was like May when she came home. So February, or it may not have been February, it may have been like April, March, or April, somewhere in there. Like,
Mm-hmm.
so I would pick her up for from school because she went to Montebello. So I would pick her up from school because she worked here on the weekends. So I would pick her up, and so you pick her up, and one just like during that month, I was like, she doesn't look, something looks different about her. And I was like, she pregnant? And then I don't know. I was like, I don't know. And so when I picked her up the next weekend, she looked normal. So I was like, okay, maybe I was just tripping. And so she looked normal from that point on. It was strange. Um,
That
but
is strange.
yeah, so the young guy, like would always speak to me, and uh, Michael was in the hospital at one point. He, making sure he came by, so he would, speak and all of that until she told him she was pregnant. Crickets, like
Really?
nothing. Like I was like, now's not the time to be shy, man.
Yeah.
Like,
Your
but
family.
yeah, like not, it's really not the time. You were, breaking your neck to make sure, like, tell your mom I said, hey, that
Yeah.
kind of stuff. And then nothing, because I actually, after he didn't, like, I was just like, come talk to us, you know what I'm saying? Like, let us know what you want to do, you know what I'm saying, what you can't, like, just come talk to us at this.
Yeah.
yeah.
Got nothing from him. So at that point I was like, okay, it is what it is.
So he just kind of disappeared, basically.
Like he would text, but it would be nothing concerning the state that we were in. Like I'm actively pregnant and it would be nothing in regards to that. And I was just like, I don't
Now,
have
how old was he?
he was maybe about 2 years older than me, 2-3 years older than me.
So is he 22?
Yeah, around, yeah, he was a little bit older than me, not much. I can't remember
I think I remember you saying he was like 22 at one, like, so I think he was 22.
I can't remember the age gap at this
So,
juncture.
like, he was like avoidance. Like, if I just ignore this, avoid it, like it's almost like it doesn't even exist, like it's not a reality.
Absolutely. He actually, when I told him, he was like, "How did this happen?" And I was like, "Are you?"
What do you mean?
You 22 and don't know how it happened. This is a problem.
You're not serious.
Yeah. We got bigger issues, bro.
I was like, "You're not serious. We're not. There's no way." So that was that whole thing, and I knew then that I just kind of had to like put on my big girl pants and just do what I need to do. So after
I'm asking questions. Hold on. I have to get a clear picture. So were you so did you stay on Montevella's campus during the week? And so on the weekends you would come home. So
when I had to work.
Okay. So did he stay on the campus as well?
By this point, he was not on campus because he had moved back home. And so he had moved home and started working. So he lost his scholarship and that was like a whole thing. And then he was just at home. He was in Birmingham. So
okay. All right. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, you're good. You're good. So yeah, after I let him know, I called my brother because my brother also, he was living in Montebello, but me and my brother are super close. So I called him and I was like, so I'm having a kid. And he was like, oh my gosh, are you? So it was a little bit of excitement, but he was like,
he said, are you?
Like, did you tell mom? And I was like, no, not yet. It's like still, trying to work that out. So he was like, okay, so I shouldn't say anything until you tell mom. And I was like, yeah, we're not gonna say anything. So I called him, let him know. He seemed excited. So that made me feel like a little bit better. I was like, okay, I got my brother. And so then I called my aunt, who's actually like a sister to me. We're really close in age. So I called her, and me and her are the best of friends. And I was like, hey girl, I know you're at work, but I got something to tell you. And she was like, yeah, what's going on? And I was like, I'm having a kid. And she kind of like freaked out. She was like, oh my gosh, like,
yeah.
What? So she freaked out and she was like, okay, so I'm gonna come over when I get off work, and then I'm gonna be there when we tell your parents and all of that. And I was like, thank God, because I don't know how this is gonna go.
Yeah.
I have no idea how this is gonna go. So I remember my grandma wanted to run a lot of errands that day, and I was like, ma'am, now is not the time. Now is not the time to run errands. I would like to go home and sit and stew in this for a while. So we ran all the errands that day. It seemed like the day kind of drug along. And so we finally got home, and my dad was at the house. And I was like, I can't tell him right now. Can't do it. So I sat there for pretty much the rest of the day, and I called my mom. Well, actually, I can't remember if I texted you or called you.
You called me.
I called her and I was like, hey, when you get home, like, I just need to talk to you. Got some things I want to talk to you about. And she was like, okay. She's like, you don't want to talk about it now? And I was like, no.
Because I said, well, I'm going to be late, coming because I I was going to visit somebody in the hospital. Mm-hmm. Okay. And I said, so what do you want to, tell me? Well, I'll just tell you when you get here, is what she said. Now, this is not normal. Mm-hmm. Because she calls everybody in the family every day. Like, just calls. And whatever it is she's wanting, she'll tell you.
Yeah.
So I knew something was like, I'm like,
she wasn't being direct.
Yeah, because she's like, I'll just tell you when you get here. And I was like, well, what is it? I'll just tell you when you get here. So I said, okay. So when I hung up, I said, okay. Because I had this thought the Tuesday before. Because remind you, I said I thought she was like a month or so before actually knowing. And then I was like, I said, I wonder. So that Tuesday I had the thought again of, was she pregnant? And then I said, well, if she doesn't tell me by Friday, then I'm going to ask her, like,
Really?
yeah. So I had that thought on that Tuesday. So this was a Thursday when she found out.
Yep.
So,
Oh, that's so interesting.
yeah. So proceed.
So I like everybody came over. My sister came over, her husband, all of her kids, which all the kids were usually there anyway after school. So
your aunt sister.
Yeah. So we were there kind of like normal. Her husband came over and I was like, oh great, he's here too. This is wonderful. We're doing this thing. So my mom finally came in and I was like, okay, everybody, we're just gonna gather around the table, gather around the campfire. I got some news. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, I'm just gonna go ahead and say it. And I was like, I'm having a kid. And for a split second, it was just kind of like dead silence. And I was like, oh God, this is horrible. I'm like sobbing. Like, I don't know what's happening. My mom was like, it's, their father. I was like, yeah. And so she was like, okay. She was very calm about it, which I did. Well, here's what I'll say.
I said I knew it first.
Yeah.
I said I knew it. And then I asked, was it the guy? And she said yes. And then I said, she was crying at this point. And then I think I noticed that she was crying. And, and I said, hey, why are you crying? And she was like, kind of like, and I said, hey, it's you made a decision.
Yeah.
So, like I said, if you're crying because you're overwhelmed by the whole situation, and she said, well, I let you down. And I said, no, ma'am, you did not. I said, you made, and that's when I said you made a decision, you made a decision, you made a choice. I said, and so now we just, deal with, I was like, the child is not a consequence, because we just thought it was a child. At that point. So I'm like, the child, the child is not a consequence. It's just you gotta, figure out life now. Now.
Yeah, of course.
So like I was never really worried about her response to it. I was more so worried about my dad.
Yeah.
Because I am his baby girl.
You were his baby having a baby. Yeah, my dad's response was much different than my mom's.
Yeah, so he well, a little backstory on our kind of like dynamic. We're so much alike that we clash a lot.
Yeah.
So I was like, this is not gonna be good. This is not gonna be great, which I knew. So I was kind of, trying to prepare myself for that. And when I said it, it just kind of like I don't know what happened in his mind, but he left. He walked out.
Oh, he left.
Well, he went outside.
He just walked away.
He walked away, which made me a little bit more sad. Which I'm not trying to cry now.
It's okay if you do. We got napkins.
Yeah.
So
okay. It's good to talk about it.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, we've just, we've gone down this kind of rocky road to where we get along, and then when we clash. It's just a pain. It's okay.
All right.
Under the thing.
I can't get over there to get it, but
it's fine. I'm fine. Everything's fine. So
let it out.
So I remember my grandmother and my mom and my sister, they pulled me into my grandma's room, and my grandma was like, you're fine. Like, you're fine. Everything's fine. And everybody was just like, we're proud of you because you made it farther than any of us.
Yes, because mind you, I had Michael when I was 16.
That's what I was you telling this and kind of getting emotional about it. It kind of made me think that maybe you were so emotional because of knowing Miss Donna, of like having a child very young, and kind of like maybe you were wanting to be different, even though you were older. But it's kind of like one of those things that.
Right, which I think for most of my life, like everybody just kind of held me at a higher standard, and like they just kind of pushed that on me. So
Okay.
when it didn't turn out that I like the way that I felt like they wanted it to turn out, I felt like, okay, like it's over. Like I'm basically a disgrace at this point.
Which is why I told her no. you know, you're
Yeah.
not, you're not, because I understood at that moment that, number one, my reaction, or my, what I'm saying, like my reaction, my words, like they're gonna carry a weight.
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying? And I think I said in the moment too of when I was saying I knew it, I was like, the Holy Spirit is not gonna let me be surprised, because he didn't. You know what I'm saying? Like he's not gonna let anything floor me. It's not anything that he hadn't already equipped me
To
for.
handle.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, to handle. And two, like I would tell them, I would tell them growing up, I never we didn't sugarcoat things for them, you know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Like I told them about, they knew how they got here. you know,
Yeah, of course.
like, it wasn't, it wasn't like I had three children, outside of marriage. So they knew that.
Yeah.
Um, and I would tell them, like out when we would, talk about, the dangers or whatever, or just the decision to have sex before marriage, the things that could happen.
Mhm.
In that, and it too, like it can happen if you're married too, but it's just like God's covenant is within marriage, right? Like
Right.
he wanted us to be fruitful and multiply, but he wanted us to do that within the confines of marriage. So I did, like I would tell them that growing up, and before they went to college, we talked about their plans for purity. Like, how are you
Mhm.
going to stay that? What's your decision, and how are you going to keep that? So we had these talks, but I always told them anything that I tell you is in like that regard is a suggestion,
Yeah.
because I can't make you do that. I can't make you make these decisions. And one day I'm not going to be there as your kind of gatekeeper. So you're going to have to decide what you're going to do in those moments. So like knowing all that, I'm saying, like knowing all that, it was just, that's why my response was, you just made a decision, because that's what she did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Decision.
I
Yeah.
love that though. I love that you handled it the way that you did, because I think that how we react and respond is how what we remember. Even I still remember like my mom and my father's reaction, to my, because obviously I felt like a letdown too, because I got pregnant actually in college. Well, I did. Well, I guess it happened. I was in school. I had just graduated, but kind of this basically similar stories. But you feel that shame and that guilt.
Yeah.
So it's one of those, when you hear their reactions, it kind of stays with you, because you don't like to feel like you've let your parents down,
Yeah.
or anybody, but especially those that you care about.
Yeah. So like me being the girl and like the baby, like kind of like the baby in everybody's eyes, like
Yeah.
I knew that I was like, oh, this is not gonna be great. This is not gonna be ideal. And I remember just in that moment, like after telling them, like the women kind of like surrounding me, being like, "You're fine. Like
That's awesome.
you're okay. These things happen, and now we just figure out how to move on forward." But I remember sitting in that room and being like, "But my dad, like, I did not know what he was thinking," and that kind of like bothered me a lot, because I was like, I don't. He hasn't said anything, so I don't know. And that made me feel like really bad. So like for a good bit after that, I don't think me and my dad like talk. It was kind of like we just, which we never had real conversations or anything like that. So like he never knew about anybody that I was talking to or anything that I was kind of like doing. Like I would always talk to my mom about that, but like we didn't have those conversations. It was more so like we joke around, and then that would be kind of like that. We didn't have the serious conversations.
Yeah.
So it was kind of like it just kind of. I'm not well. I can't remember when we actually sat down and had a conversation, but it was just kind of like swept under the rug a little bit. Like okay, like we just didn't talk about it. And then one day it was just kind of like he was like, "I'm upset because I didn't know anything."
He didn't know that there was even like a guy.
Which he spoke to my mom before he spoke to me.
He didn't know that you had a what would you call him, a boyfriend at that point?
Yeah, because
Yeah.
yeah,
So,
yeah,
Yeah, because he asked me like, yeah, he was just like, I don't know anything about this person. I didn't even know they existed. You know what I'm saying? So like for me,
okay.
like I just knew that like kind of the scope of like, okay, this is kind of like a friend that she had. You know what I'm saying? Like, so I didn't think anything of it for real. You know what I mean? And it wasn't like she came to me and said, "Hey, mom, I'm thinking of having sex with this guy."
Yeah.
But so I
That's
did,
not
you know
weird
what I'm
at
saying?
all.
So it wasn't in it like I just didn't think anything of it. Like of it.
Yeah.
And like I think too, because going back to the conversation is when after I thought about some things like going through the process of it, I was like, okay, because I was like, okay, like there was a question in my mind of like, how did she just like what made her just decide to do, you know what I'm saying, like to do that? Because I was like, what made
This might be too much information, but was that the first sexual encounter that you had? No, you don't.
No,
Okay. I was
no.
just wondering if that was like the first person and then that happened.
Full disclosure, because I mean,
there's no reason to not
no
I
reason.
mean, if we don't
But
have if you don't want to answer that, we can like bypass that.
oh no, you're good. I don't mind it. It was actually the second person ever in life. I
Okay.
actually did not have any like sexual encounters or anything like that until I got into college.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, because she told me like later about that there was a guy before,
yeah,
like somebody before.
Yeah.
And like I said, we so I just didn't think of,
yeah. So
he was like up to like, why didn't you tell me? And I think I told him that I was like, well, really that was for her to,
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying, like for her to do. And I was like, I just didn't really think anything. I was like, I don't like know the guy like that. It's not like me and him had gone to lunch or nothing. You know what I'm saying? I was like, I just know this is a guy that hangs around. And like, and when I'm on like, on the phone with her, he's always like, tell your mom I said hey, or times that I've gone to pick her up, he's like, waving. So that was yeah, that was the scope of the my knowledge of him,
waving and bringing stuff to the car.
Yeah, like that was the scope of it. So I'm like, it's not like I had a
Maybe he felt left out.
yeah, I think that he did. And then too, like there again, she's the
You're the baby. You're
the
his
baby
girl.
of, yeah, she's
Yeah.
our only girl and the baby.
So there's a protective like measure to that. Like
Yeah.
he wanted to guard you, and
Right.
here's all that kind of stuff that goes into place.
Which I end up like I told him, and I told my mom this too after it was brought to my attention that he felt that way. I was just kind of like, for me, I didn't see that as a problem, like that I didn't say anything, because that's not what we do. Like we don't talk about that at all. like anything of that nature. We've never talked about. So it was just kind of like, why? Like for me, I was like, why would you expect me to come and talk to you about that prior to when we've never done that? Like that's not our normal kind of like relationship.
Right.
So I didn't really see it as a
problem.
Yeah, as a problem, because I was like, we don't do that. Like, what do you mean you don't know? You would have never known because we don't talk like that. We don't do that.
Yeah. And there was another thing that I recalled too. Like she kept asking me, could she date? Like she asked me like a couple of times. And I was just like, what? Like, I think after like the second or third time she asked me that, I was just like, what are you? I was like, you can date it because at this, you're an adult at this point.
Yeah.
So I'm like, if that's what you want to do, like, I mean, yeah, like you can, if that's what you want to do, you can date. Because I had always told them, like, hey, you don't have to tie yourself down to anybody.
Right.
You can have friends, and like when they were in high school and stuff, I'm like, go out in groups and stuff. I was like, because there's going to be plenty of time for you to find that person. You know what I mean? Like, but just handle your goals, whatever those are, and then worry about that because there's going to be time for that. And so I think that was why maybe she kept asking,
Yeah, like, is this okay?
Yeah, but but now that I think about it, I'm like, she had already probably had sex at that point, which was why she was asking. No, but that was just my thought.
I was asking before that.
Okay.
And technically, I had already been doing that.
Okay, because I was just like, I don't know what you want. You know what I'm saying? I was just like, why does she keep asking?
Technically, we've been dating, so
So I was like, well, dating.
Like we're here now. So
yeah.
So yeah, after we had that conversation, I had that conversation with him. It was just kind of like business per usual. Like, oh, we're back to our normal. Still like not sharing information, but just like we're back to our regularly scheduled programming. So from that point on, everything was kind of fast tracked. I had doctor's appointments that were like, okay, clearly we have to figure out how far along you are and this whole thing. But my life had been kind of normal. So like I said, I didn't have any inkling that I could be pregnant because I was still having my cycle. I was like no food aversions, no anything, just everything is normal.
Oh, so you still had your period and everything. Oh, okay.
I'm just living life, having a grand old time. No problems. And then I went to the doctor, and it was just kind of like once they figured out that, okay, like you're actually at this point, was I like 4 or 5 months already?
It was a long.
I was very far along. Very far.
Wait, what?
Yeah,
she was far. Like this was May, like the ending of May.
The end of May. Very far along.
So we didn't have much time to.
Oh, okay. So tell me, when you went to the doctor, what was that like? They did the ultrasound and they saw obviously 2 babies. Were they in the same?
Well, no. It wasn't that.
No.
Here, you gotta hear.
So
this.
I want to say my first doctor's appointment that I went to was the groundwork to try to figure out, okay, how far along are you? And they were like, okay, well, based off what we figured out, you are about like 5 months. And I was like, excuse me, but I didn't look it. Like I didn't.
I think she was a little farther than that, like maybe 6 or 7.
Like I was
my goodness.
She was far. But tell her how you would behave when going to the doctor.
I thought
or tell everyone.
Well, that's we weren't talking about things. No, I'm kidding.
That's a vital part.
No, I'm kidding. So from the time that I think it might have started in middle school.
Elementary.
Okay, well, I don't remember that far back, but for as long as I can remember, every time that I go to the doctor, I have like severe anxiety attacks and my blood pressure goes through the roof.
Just from
Just
Just
before I even get there. Before I even get there,
she would
anxiety is high.
hyperventilate, be crying, and we weren't even in the parking lot
Yeah.
Oh
of
my
the doctor's
goodness.
office yet. She had learned. I couldn't tell her when she had doctor's appointments.
Yeah.
But she learned the route to the doctor, and she started putting two and two together, like especially if I had to get them like an earlier appointment.
Yeah.
Um,
Were you a sick child?
no, she wasn't.
No?
And I tried to figure out for years why she behaved like that
Mm-hmm.
going to the doctor, because I couldn't remember. I was like, I don't remember her like behaving like this much of elementary, but it started in elementary and on through
beginning of my dramatic.
Yeah, so she's had to have overnight blood pressure monitoring because they thought she had true hypertension.
Yep.
Oh, and it was just related to the visit.
Yes,
Yep.
she had white coat syndrome. That's what she had.
Diagnosed with white coat syndrome. So yes. I remember going to my first appointment. They were like, okay, we got to figure everything out. So they're doing all these tests and all these things. My mama was like, if you don't chill out, they're going to send you to the hospital. Like, you have got to calm down. And I'm like, I really can't tell you why I'm behaving this way. I don't know what's wrong. They don't scare me. I'm fine. I don't know.
And what happened right after I said that?
They sent me to the hospital to be looked at. They did do that. They were like, yeah, you're going to go and you're going to sit for a minute. So they did that. We were in there and I'm like, guys, I don't have high blood pressure. Like, I promise you, I know you can't take my word for it, but like, I don't have high blood pressure. Like, I don't know what it is about this place or any other hospital facility that I just don't like, but I can guarantee I don't have high blood pressure. And my mom was like, yeah, we know that, but they can't just
I was like, they can't just take our words for it. And it was late in the day.
Yeah.
And I was like, they're not going to want to have to try to get you to sign something, wait for records, so I said, they're going to send you. And no sooner than I finished that statement,
they sent me.
The lady comes in, we got to send you over to be checked out. I was like, okay. So I was telling her, I said, you got to figure out a way to come to this. I was like, because these appointments are going to increase.
Yeah.
They're not going to let up. They're going to increase. I said, and then you're going to have a child who you're going to have to take to the doctor.
Yeah.
You and the baby can't be
beating
the doctor. So I was like, you have to figure this out. So we get over to the hospital for the evaluate,
because they were trying to make sure I didn't have preeclampsia or anything like that. And I'm like, I don't, like, I'm fine. It's just me being here. I promise. When I walk out of those doors, I'm gonna be fine. So they put these things around me and they're like monitoring baby and I and blood pressures and all that. And I'm laying in the hospital bed, just getting my blood pressure checked like every couple of minutes or so. Yeah. Like it was a bit much.
It was like every 5-10 minutes they were checking.
It was a bit much. So we were sitting there and they had, it was like an ultrasound thing, but we could hear the heartbeat. And we were like, that's a rather strong heartbeat for one baby. We were like, that's loud.
We were like, that a strong heartbeat, it was just one heartbeat that we were hearing.
I was like, that is
we thought.
Right. Yeah.
It was one.
Yeah. Okay.
So that whole thing went down. They were like, yeah, you don't have high blood pressure. Like, everything's fine with you. You're good. So they sent me home.
Well, no, they did the ultrasound too.
Oh yeah, they did the ultrasound and we only saw one baby.
So it was Niko, me, a nurse, and a resident in the room. And the resident was doing the ultrasound.
Yep.
And like, she didn't just do like a quick, like she was, this ultrasound went for a little while. Yeah. And
there's only one.
We're hearing one heartbeat. We see one baby. So we leave the hospital thinking it's one baby.
It's
We
one
didn't know
baby.
what it was, what the baby was. It's just one baby. Because that's what while she was doing, because she was trying to see if she could see what it was.
Because that was like a theme throughout the whole fast track thing. It was like, we're gonna go try to figure out what you're having. And every time we would go, it was like, oh, we can't see what you're having. Mm-hmm. So that became like a thing.
So she had to go back to the doctor.
Yep.
Like 4 days later, 3 or 4 days later. Yeah, it was like 4 days later. She had to go back for another appointment with the OB people.
And I'd like to say throughout this whole process, every time I went, my blood pressure got better and my anxiety got better. So I think me having to go over and over and over again helped with that.
That's good.
So we went and they were like, yeah, my OB was like, that baby had a strong heartbeat. Like, that's like real strong. That's kind of like, she was even like taken aback, like, wow, that's
a strong,
insane. But still nobody kind of knew that it was.
So they cannot see the second baby when they were doing ultrasound.
The resident was looking at the screen.
We were all there.
I was looking at the screen. The nurse was looking at the screen. It was one baby. One.
That we saw
that day.
We know it was 2 in there. Now
that we saw one.
But we saw one.
So fast forward 4 days later.
So I go and they're like, okay, well, we're gonna have to do another, ultrasound. Yeah. We're gonna surely today is gonna be the day that we find out what you're having. And I'm like, oh, thank God. We get in the ultrasound room. Business per usual. I'm laying there. I'm like, yay, today's gonna be the day. Yeah. My mom's with me, and
is because it is exciting when you find out the gender.
I'm like, at this point, like, we got this thing going. Let's figure out what we're doing, because I'm like, we don't have any time to waste because I'm already so far along. Had no idea. So it's like we gotta like.
So you didn't gain really any weight.
I literally. Here's what I will say: when I found out. And after I found out how far along I was, that's when I started showing. It was the wildest thing. It was kind of like I woke up one morning and it was just like, oh, it's a belly that has not been present for this entire time. Yeah. It's wild. And it literally everybody around me can attest to that it was kind of like I looked like my normal self.
She looked like I said, there was points where I thought I don't know, but then she would look normal.
I mean, like,
I go, okay, I'm just tripping, I guess.
Like we're all delusional and losing our minds at this point. So yeah, I looked fine. I didn't really feel like I was gaining any weight. I don't think I really gained much weight at all, actually. My weight has fluctuated kind of like all my life, so I was just kind of like, okay, this is what my phase is. And then I would look normal again and feel normal again. So I'm like, I don't know what's happening. But as soon as I found out, and then we found out how far along I was, is like that very next morning I was showing, and it was kind of like, oh, well, here's the proof. Here's the proof, because now I have a belly that just kind of grew overnight. So we're here. So fast forward to the ultrasound appointment. We went, my mom's with me, and the lady who's doing my ultrasound, she's like, oh yeah, she had been my normal kind of like ultrasound tech. She was like, oh yeah, we get to figure out what you're having today. So she's doing her thing, and she's like, let's see what this baby is. And then she's like, or should I say babies? And I was like,
so I'm looking. So she's on the bed. The ultrasound lady has her. So there's a screen.
Yep.
That you're looking at. So I'm looking at the screen, and she says, okay, so then she starts and she says, okay, there's a baby. And then she goes, and then she said, there's the other baby. And we said, like, what?
Yeah.
Now I'm looking at the screen. And then, so she said, then we go say, what? And then she goes, y'all, you didn't know that there's two. So I'm looking at the screen, and I said,
literally, this was my mom. I'm pretty sure I flatlined for a second, but my mom was like, oh yeah.
I was like, there's clearly two.
It's 2 of them. And I'm like, are you serious?
I said, there's clearly, because
there's definitely 2.
It's like 1, and then the screen splits.
Yeah.
And then it's 2. So I said, that's definitely
Two
two of
babies.
them. I said, now, I don't know how that baby grew a head and legs in 4 days, because that baby wasn't there 4 days ago. It was one baby. It's like, I don't know where that other one came from, but it was one. She was like, what? I said, like, ma'am, I
We're
said,
not playing.
4 days ago, it was one baby.
We're not
I
playing.
said, we heard one heartbeat. It was loud and strong, but we heard it. I said, and I saw one baby. And I was like, I wasn't the only one that saw one baby.
It was a room full of it. We all saw.
And she was like, oh, I don't know. So I look over. So I look at Niko, and her face like just blank. And it's like she's pale.
Yeah.
And so I say,
she's like, I'm not ready for this.
Yeah. So it's like she's pale. So I say, so I know, I go, hey. She's just like, I said, hey, and I said, God has graced you to be the mother to those.
You said, hey.
You can only, like, my thoughts were,
she was not with us.
I was present, but I was not present. To be
so,
absent here, I was present with the Lord in that moment. For
You're
sure.
like, God has graced you with these 2 kids. Wake up. You gotta get with it.
I was like,
I said, you're gonna be all right. God has graced you he's gonna grace you to do this. And I was like, but it's definitely 2 of them up there.
Yeah,
I don't know
I
don't know how that other baby grew though.
Truly in disbelief, because I'm like, this whole thing
in 4 days.
That's so wild.
This whole thing is fast tracked. I'm like, I'm already still not like over the fact that I'm even pregnant, and then just to find out that it's 2, I'm like,
it was crazy.
Why? Why are we doing this? And then that day we found out that it was 2 girls, and then I'm like, oh great, this just keeps getting better. It just keeps getting better.
Yeah, because when she said it was 2, one of them kind of like looked at the camera and then turned her head real quick, and I said, that was probably that one that was hiding the other day.
Yeah. Where were you hiding?
Because it was like, where were you? I mean,
yeah, it was almost like, and I looking at the ultrasound pictures from that day, you could literally see the little face like, oh, y'all seen me? Y'all ain't supposed to see me yet.
Yeah,
you're still hiding. Yeah, but I was like, it's really doable.
So yeah, I was still in disbelief. So I called my sister when we left, because she had been asked. She was like, I can't wait to find out. Just let me know. And so I got on the phone with her, and I was like, hey, so I found out what I'm having. And she was like, what are we having? She's like, it's a boy. And I was like, no, it's twins, and it's girls. And she hung up in my face. Like, she hung up in my face. And I was like, I looked over, I said, I think she thinks I'm playing. Like, I don't know why I would play like that, but I don't think she realizes that I'm so serious.
But she was still kind of in shock.
Like,
too.
Yeah.
Like,
it's 2 of them.
She thinks I'm playing, but I'm
so serious. So we got home. My grandma was excited. She was like, hey, what are you having? And she was like, how's the baby? What's the baby? And I was like, you mean babies?
Yeah.
And like by that point, I'm sobbing all over again. And she was
said,
like,
what? I said, it's 2 of them.
Yeah.
I said, I saw them.
Yeah.
Well, I can't believe that you were that far along with twins, and the first time you went, you didn't even know.
I had no idea.
Oh my goodness! Was you like, your anxiety was probably just
I was
so
like,
high.
I don't know why.
I just can't even imagine. I feel like I would have been like, I probably would have been like paralyzed, like with just like.
Well, she almost fell off of that ultrasound table.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure.
She almost fell off there. That's why I was like, hey, you gotta snap out. You have to roll off of that thing.
But you gotta get with it now.
Like, this is happening.
I'm like, God has he's graced you to do this.
Yep. So, and then I had to tell my dad that, which was like a whole nother blow. Because prior to that, when I was in, my senior year, he had some health problems, some heart problems, and having to go and tell him, that I was pregnant, I was like, that may be the thing that take him out of here. But it didn't. He lived through that. And then knowing I had to go back and tell him, like, hey, by the way, it's twins, I was like, now that's definitely going to take him out of here. Like I remember telling my mom, I was like, I don't think it's hard as gonna be able to take it. I really don't. And he said to himself, he was like, you gave me he thought he was gonna have to go to the hospital for sure. He told my mom, he was like, you're gonna have to take me to the hospital because I don't.
I was like, she's gonna be fine, and so are you.
We're just all in this together. We're all struggling.
We're all fine.
The shock that you had.
I love this. Miss Donna's like, we're all fine. We're all gonna be fine.
We're all gonna be fine. We're all gonna live.
The shock that he had, I'm like, how you are right now. Imagine me finding out. Okay.
Yeah.
So, and then after that, I had another OB appointment, and my OB came in, and she was like, that RN,
the resident,
the resident who did your first ultrasound will never, ever, ever forget you because we all saw one. There was one, and she was like, actually, there's two, and she was like, it makes a lot more sense now that the heartbeat was so loud and just
but they were in unison
and sync.
It was I mean, like,
she's like, it makes sense.
It was one. It sounded like one heartbeat, but it was just loud.
Yeah,
and I was just like, that is one strong baby.
Yeah.
and that's what the her OB said. She was like, that resident, she is never going to forget you for the rest of her life.
Yeah.
It was like, because she said, I told her, you gotta be thorough. I was like, but Dr. Howard, she was. I was like, I was there. I said, she was thorough. I was like, it wasn't like she did a flyby ultrasound. No. Like, she was. I was like, but that baby was hiding behind the other one. I was like, I was like, she must have been like back to back or something.
Also makes sense later on, closer to like my labor and delivery. It'll make sense then too.
Which she didn't have.
Yeah,
she didn't have
it. It really wasn't.
She'll tell it.
It really wasn't labor and
delivery. Then I'll say what it was.
So from that point on, it was just kind of like, okay, doctor's appointments, but everything was so quick. So by this point, I'm like, I'm about to have babies. Like, literally no time to do anything. I'm just about to have babies. Like, this is what we're doing.
Because they were like, they don't, with twins, they don't want you to go beyond, a certain amount of weeks.
Which I was already like pretty far along. There. So
what week did you actually have the twins?
I was 34 and a half.
I think it was, because I think you were 2 weeks away from where they would have like
induced.
Because I want to say they said 36. Like, they wanted them to be born at 36 weeks. And I think they did come like 2 weeks, somewhere in there.
Yeah, because my actual due date was in August. Was closer to my brother's birthday in August. So it was like closer to the end of August was my actual due date. So I had a doctor's appointment. We're moving on to my birth story. Had a doctor's appointment, and did the whole ultrasound thing. Everything. My doctor's appointment was fine. Now, from my ultrasounds before that day, they had been head down. So they were like, they're all like, they're head down. We don't really, there were talks about maybe having to do something else, but they were like, we're just gonna, they're head down. It's fine. So they were talking about maybe one of them being breached, or like preparing me for things like that. So when we went,
you were gonna try to have them naturally, or have a
that was always the goal, but it was always like, okay, if that doesn't work out, like,
it's just so
it's like we're just gonna have to see how it goes, pretty much. Like, we're just gonna
it was something that day when she went, she wasn't scheduled for an ultrasound. But they wound up doing another one for some reason. They said they needed to do it.
It was like they were doing measurements on, like, testing for, I don't know if you remember this, but they were like, oh yeah, we're just, you have to like pass like certain measurements or tests or something. I can't really remember.
I had so many, because I was
it was something they were,
because I was so far along and I had not done it yet. Like, you haven't done it yet? I was like, no, I don't even know what you're talking about. So they had to go and do that, because apparently I was supposed to have that done
like before,
earlier.
So this was the only appointment
that my mom didn't go to.
Not gone to.
The only one I went to by myself.
It was the only one she had went to by herself, and I was going to pick her up from the appointment. So
because my job they had planned a baby shower for me that day. So this was July 11th, 2017. I was at my doctor's appointment. My OB is like, everything looks great. Like, you look fine. Just go over there and get that ultrasound. I go do that. The ultrasound tech does what she does. She was like, you're fine. Everything looks good. I hop off of the table. And by this point, I'm like, I'm not really too big, but I'm big enough to where I have to sit down and adjust my movements when I'm tying shoes.
Yeah.
So I was like putting my shoes on, and full disclosure, I upchucked pretty much everywhere while I was putting on my shoes. And I'm like, I don't know what's happening. So the ultrasound tech was like, are you okay? And I was like, I don't know why I just did that, but I did.
So I called her because I had told her when she said, oh, they're sending me for the ultrasound. And I said, oh, okay. I said, well, I'm about to leave because I was leaving Bessemer. So I was like, well, I'm about to leave Bessemer. I said, so by the time I get there, you should be ready and probably downstairs. So she's like, okay. So I get down there, and I had to circle, and I was like, she should have been, because she said the appointment was, you know. So I was like, she should have been down. So I circle again, and so then I called her, and I was like, hey, and then she was like, oh, you may want to come up here. And I was like, okay, well, why? She said, well, I threw up. And I said, you threw up? Because that was just weird, because she hadn't
done any of that.
So I was just like, you threw up. So I said, well, what did you eat? She said, well, I had like
2 crackers.
She said I had like something for breakfast.
I had a bowl of cereal,
but I hadn't had anything else. So I said, oh, okay. I said, well, okay, I'll park and come up.
Because by that point they wanted to make sure it wasn't anything more serious going on. So they were like calling the nurses in, like, we got to figure out what's going on. And by the time, because they're like, we're trying to make sure it's not like Braxton Hicks or anything like that, so we just got to figure it out. So by the time my mom gets up there, I'm sitting on the ultrasound floor.
No, you weren't. You didn't sit. She was like leaning on the bed of the little ultrasound bed, and they hadn't cleaned up yet. And if you know me, you know I don't do
germaphobe.
I would wear gloves when they would be sick. Okay, so so I came in. I was like, oh, I was like, oh yeah, you did. You did throw up. Okay, so I have to cross over that to get over, and she's talking to me normal.
The most unhelpful individual.
Now I'm gonna take you backwards a little bit. Like, so, you know, after we found out everything, so she asked me one day before that, will you be in the delivery room with me? And I was like, oh God, no. I was like, because I had gotten to the point before we, you know, before she even was pregnant, that before she graduated high school, I wasn't going to take her to the doctor anymore.
Yeah, she was done with me because of
how she acted when she went. And I was just like, I cannot. So I told her that. I said, you're going to have to take her to the doctor from now. I just can't do it. He was like, what? Why? What did she do? I said, it's horrible. I said, she starts crying and hyperventilating before we even get there. I said, and then when we get up to the thing, they always think, well, oh my gosh, what's happening? They think she's in some kind of crisis or emergency. And I'm like, no, we're just here for a wellness visit. You know, she's not even sick or anything. We're just here for the wellness visit. So I was like, I'm
done right now. I would have been the same way.
Yeah, I was like, I'm gonna kill her. I can't take it because I can't take it.
I'm the drama.
I said, so you're gonna have to.
You said I'm going to kill her. I cannot take it one more time
anymore. And so,
but I also knew that I was like that. So I was
Do
like,
you feed off of, are you more dramatic with your mom? Because I feel like my kids are more dramatic with me.
oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I'm just like, that's why I
So
was
like
like, you're gonna have to do it.
I was like, I know I'm gonna have to give birth. So like before I even had them, like, when I found out, I was like, I'm gonna have to, like, I sat there one night and I was like, I'm gonna have to push a kid out before I knew it was 2. I was like, wow, like this is, and I'm like, I have white coat syndrome. Who knows how this is gonna go? So I was fully expecting it to be kind of like the worst possible scenario, like horrible. But I had been praying when I found out. I was like, God, I just pray that it's a smooth sailing pregnancy, that everything goes how it should, that I go in, I have my baby, and I leave, and none of us have to stay long, and it don't be no problems. Everything's gonna work out fine. Mm-hmm. Pray that every day.
And I was
every day.
Well, we were all praying. And so when she asked me about being, I was like, I'm not gonna be able to.
Can't do it.
I was like, I will probably you, so I can't be in there because they would get me for abuse or something. And so I was just like, so I was praying. I was like, Lord, I was like, she wants me to be in there, and I was like, I don't think I have it, to be.
I don't think I'm equipped for that.
Yeah, I'm not equipped for that. I said, so I started praying for it to go quick.
Yeah.
For it to be smooth, and that, she just for healthy babies. Mm-hmm. And so that morning we would have a meet. I would have 2 meetings on Tuesday mornings because this was a Tuesday. And so the first meeting I had, we would end, with prayer request. And so that particular day, I didn't say anything, but one of my dear coworker loved ones, she was like, "Oh, we got to pray for the babies." Mm-hmm. And I was like, "Oh," I said, "Well, they're not due until, whatever." She was like, "No, but we still got to pray." She was like, "We still got to pray for them." So I was like, "Yeah, so yeah, we got to pray for them." Say a beautiful prayer. And and I think it was Pastor Mark that was praying, but he was praying about, just healthy, like the labor would go smooth. So I'm not at this point not knowing that we're going to be in that this afternoon,
oh my goodness.
Yes. So I get in there, and she's leaning on the bed, and she's talking calmly, to me. And I said, "Well, what happened?" She was like, just after the ocean, I just felt sick all of a sudden. And just, and I was like, "Oh, okay." So she was like, "Yeah, just feel some pressure." And I said, "Oh, okay. Well, let's see." Cause the ultrasound ticket said, well, I went to get the nurse practitioner whom she had just seen. And so we were waiting on the nurse practitioner to come. And so, so now by this time I'm over by her, and she goes, "Oh, I just feel so precious." So then she like sits on the floor.
Because that's where I was most comfortable.
Yeah, so she sits on the floor, and I said, "Oh no, you got to get up."
The most uncomfortable individual.
So she's sitting on the floor. She's like, "Yeah, I just feel pressure." And then she says, so then she lays back. So like it's like the ultrasound room. Then there's a bathroom. So she's like, part of her is out in the ultrasound room, and now part of her is in the bathroom because she's now laying down. And so I'm like, "Oh no, like you have to." I was like, "You got to get up. The floor is dirty." You got to get
literally what she said. She said, "It's so nasty down there, ma'am." I go. I'm not worried about how nasty it is.
You've got to get up. So I lifted.
He said the floor's dirty. Get up.
You got to get up. The floor's dirty.
Why are you laying there? Just the floor's dirty. You got to get up.
So I lift her head up, and I've got her head like on my legs. And so she's leaning back on her legs. She's like, "Yeah." So now by this time, the nurse practitioner has now made it in there, and she's like, "Oh dear, what happened?" She was like, "You were just fine when I just saw you." Like, "What happened?" She was like, "I don't know. I just felt, kind of sick." And then she says, I feel like, I feel like this pressure. I feel like I need to push." And she says, "No, don't do that." So she says, no.
It was like immediately after I said that, that's when my water broke. And I was like, "Oh God, what's that?"
She said, yeah. So she says, no, don't do that. And then she says, "Oh, I feel wet." And so she like moves her leg
because I had on a dress.
She had you had jeans.
No, I didn't have on jeans. I had jeans.
So she moved her leg. She goes, "Your water broke." To the now, so now she was like, "Bring me a
very dramatic
wheelchair. We gotta go upstairs.
Chaotic and dramatic.
We gotta go upstairs." She's yelling, so people are coming running. And
my mom is worried about me still being on the floor. So I'm like, not even worried about the fact that I'm about to give birth. My job had planned the baby shower for me, so I'm like, somebody's gonna have to call them and tell them I'm not gonna make it. Like, I'm not gonna be there.
The baby shower was.
So you're trying to tell them they need to call your work and tell them you.
I told her, I said, you're not gonna make it to that baby shower.
And how I'm talking to you is how I was talking to her. I was like, somebody's gonna have to call them.
She was like, well, you're gonna have. She was like, well, will you call them? And I said, well, yeah. I said, because you're not gonna make it.
And I'm in active labor at this point, like,
because it was at the shower was at 6 o'clock because we were going to be heading from there
to the shower.
To the shower. And I said, well, give me Kelly's number. So now they've gotten the wheelchair and we're on our way upstairs. So we're on our way upstairs. And I'm like, okay, give me the number so I can call Kelly.
And we're just regular conversation. I feel the need to push. I'm not in any pain. I'm just like, I gotta push, but I'm talking to her like, we're talking right now. So it doesn't even feel like I'm doing anything at this point. I'm like, I'm just here. This is happening apparently. So we get up there, we get up to the room. And so I'm like, oh, well, I guess I'm about to have babies. Like, I'm still feeling the need to push.
So they're just thinking, they're like, well, maybe she's just having like strong contractions. Yeah. Well, after the water breaking, they were like, okay, basically.
Yeah.
So it's a bunch of nurses, in come in and they're like hooking her up. They're checking, like they're getting her shirt off.
So well, backtracking a little bit, my dad actually took me to that appointment. Now the appointment did not last long at all. So like by the time he left and got like,
he didn't get far.
He wasn't far at all. We had to call him back to tell him I was actually.
So I called and I was like, hey,
very quick.
She's about to have these babies. And he was like, what? I just dropped her. Just dropped her off for the appointment. I was like, I know, but we're heading up to labor and delivery because apparently these babies are coming.
Like she's calling everybody. And she's like, if you want to see these babies,
I was like, if you want, because my mom was like, she want, so I called my mom and I said, Mom, I said, if you wanted to come to be here for the for the babies to be born, you got to come now. And she said, what? I said, you got to come now. The babies are coming now. And she said, what? She's having the babies? Well, mine. So I said, Mother, I said, we're at UAB and labor and delivery. You got to, I said, if you want to be here for the birth of these babies, you got to come now.
And she lives a solid like 6 minutes away.
So she's trying to ask me, I said, Mother, I can't answer the questions. I got to go, so they're, they're taking, the nurses are like getting her shirt off, getting her hooked up. And so the doctor comes in and he says, okay, like what's going on? He said, they said, well, she said she felt like she had to push. So at this point, she still had her pants on. And she said she had downstairs, they said she felt like she had to push and her water broke. And he says, well, okay, I got to check. He's like, why are her pants still on?
Like, what's happening?
He was like, y'all should, like, where? So they get her pants off and
I'm still sitting on the edge of the bed facing like I'm not even fully on the bed, and he opens up, he's like, it's a head.
Yes. So he's like so when he pulls her leg and said, there's a head, he said, to the OR. So now we're running to the OR. They're running to the OR. So now because he's like, got her pants. So he's like, to the OR. So we get there. So I'm like, okay, what am I supposed to be doing with? Like, what? Okay, well, we're gonna scrub, put you in and scrub you up. So
she was doing that. Meanwhile, I had no time. So they had
pushed her in there.
No IV, no nothing.
Because they were still trying to hook her up.
No nothing, which I ultimately did not need because I wasn't feeling any pain. It just kind of happened.
There was
like everything just happened. I was like, oh.
You have them without anything?
Without anything. So they did not have any time to hook me up.
They didn't have anything. Time to
no IV, no blood pressure, no nothing. Just.
And like when they did get,
they just came. They were just
when they did get the IV in, she was actively, like having labor, and they had just put like some Tylenol like in there. But it was so that I got, my head thing on and my little suit or whatever, and got in there. And at 4:53, Taylor was born.
And at 4:57,
Teagan
was born. Mind you, my water broke at 4:32. 4:32.
Because I got there.
Wow.
Yeah, because it was close to 4:30 when I, I had gotten it was so from 4:32
to 4:57
to 4:53.
Yeah.
This is the window of which these babies.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
So I tell her, I said, you didn't have labor, you had delivery.
Literally.
Yeah, you had straight delivery. And it didn't. So was it painful or no?
Well, she was talking to me
as I'm giving birth. We're talking.
Wait, so they didn't do a C-section, so you just literally just went in and
they came out.
He was like, okay, you can push now. So that doctor delivered the first day because they were calling her OB. And by the time her regular OB got there,
she barely had time to scrub in fully because Teagan kept kind of like, they didn't tell me to push. Teagan just kind of
shot out of there.
They almost didn't catch her.
Yeah, because like she turned around to do something. I don't know what she had just turned, like slightly turned.
Yeah.
To do something, and then she was like, oh, because Teagan was right there.
Yeah, Teagan was out of there.
So like she just shot her.
Wow.
So yes, so that was just wild.
It was the whole thing. My grandma did not even make it in time.
She didn't make it to the.
So how much did they weigh? Were they healthy?
They were 4 pounds, 4.8 ounces. They weighed the exact same thing.
They both weighed the same thing.
Really?
They weighed the same amount, so they had to
That's not bad. That's pretty good. 4 pounds.
It made after
I was 4
how much they weighed, I was like, it makes sense because they had they had the same size, so it makes sense why we couldn't see the other baby because we're just like I'm just right behind you. We're just kind of
they were the same weight, and they when my mom got there, I was like, they're here. Because they had taken them.
They're here. They're
Teagan had to be put on oxygen for a little bit when she came out.
They put her on a CPAP for a bit because I was wondering because when they took Taylor and cleaned her up, they brought her back. Mm-hmm. And so she got to have the little chest time, and so they took Teagan back to the room, and so after I was like, wait a minute,
where's the other baby?
Where's the they ain't bringing her out quickly, so. So there was a door that they had gone behind, so I just went behind the door, and I was like, "Hey, what's going on?" Like you didn't bring the other baby out. Like what's happening? They were like, "Oh, well, we were trying to get her to breathe."
Yeah.
So it was like we had to put the CPAP on her, so they put that on her, and so she was in the little incubator, so she didn't get to have the chest time like she did with Taylor. So they had her in the incubator, but I was like, oh, I can see her, I can see her. But so they had to be in the NICU for like 2 weeks, 2.5 or somewhere in there weeks. So we were I would get dressed from the at the hospital and go to work.
I was released I think they let me, was I there for I was there for a day after.
Yeah, so she had to stay for a day.
Yeah,
she was in for a day, and then she was discharged, but she was discharged to the NICU because that's where they were, and I don't believe in leaving anybody in the hospital, so I'm like. They were like, oh, there was no way I was. Y'all are staying. Yeah,
absolutely, we are.
As long as they staying, we're staying.
Yeah.
They're the cutest little things. Yes. And after I had seen them, after having them, my grandmother had bought these very, very large hats with bows on them and these fancy socks with bows on them. And they were so cute. She had put them on them. So when I went to see them, they were in the little...
They had on their fancy hat and socks.
Yeah. And I was like, she is truly being a great grandmother of girls right now.
Yeah, that's so sweet.
But everybody, before I got discharged, there were people that I did not know coming to my room, like different nurses and stuff, like, we heard about you, we heard about what you've done. And I was like, what did I do? I just
Yeah. So
gave birth.
the next day when the doctor came to see her, he he said, "What was going on in that room?" He was like, "Well, they had her shirt off and didn't have pants, and it's a baby right there. Why would they not take her pants off?" He said, "You know what? I've had a talk with them."
Yeah. Yeah.
He was like,
he said, you know what? I've had a talk with them. Yeah, that doesn't make sense. They're taking off your shirt and you're sitting here saying, I'm about to.
He was like, she said, he was like, why would you? He said, when somebody tells you they feel like you got to push, the pants is the first thing you got to get off.
Yeah.
Like, they're worried about her shirt. And
I would like to also bring light to the fact that when I was about to have them, I did let their biological father know, because at the time he worked in the same hospital that I was giving birth in. I texted him and I was like, all you have to do is come upstairs. Like, I'm giving birth right now. Like, you're downstairs, come upstairs. He left the hospital and texted me and was like, oh, I'm at the gym playing basketball. And I would just like to say that in that moment, God was really with me, because I actively just gave birth and you left the hospital that I was at.
That you worked at.
That you were absolutely at on that day.
And so did y'all stay in contact throughout the pregnancy, or like when you told him, he just kind of literally just like disappeared, like ghosted?
I let him know when things were happening, because he texted me. His whole thing was, I have people around me who are like, I should get a DNA test. I said, okay, all right. I mean, yeah, that's fine. We can do that. Okay. But it was like, when it was set up, you chose not to show up. So then after that, it was just like, I'm going to do my part, because I know I didn't create them by myself. So I'm like, anything that's happening, I'm going to keep you updated, just because if you want to be involved, I mean, you can't say you didn't know anything. And then,
well, that's very nice of you on your part. I don't know if I would have handled it that way.
Believe me, I had no intentions on it, but my mom here,
she helped you navigate doing the right thing.
That she is.
Yeah.
She was like, you don't do people how they do you.
Yeah, that's so true.
You just do what you got to do and you keep pushing. So I've never been the person who's like, you don't have access, to them or me. I haven't blocked you. So if you want to reach out, you can. If you can't say I kept you from anything, pretty much. So even after having them, I, kept in contact with things that needed, that were happening, because Taylor had to have surgery a little bit after they were born. She had to have like hernia removal or whatever. And she was about 3 months, baby. So I let him know about that, and I was like, you can come visit, you can talk, like, nobody's keeping you away from anything. But he kind of created this narrative in his own mind that people in my family were going to bring harm to him. And I'm like, nobody has ever told you that ever. So, like, you're just...
Yeah, it was just an excuse.
It was an excuse, but...
Because, like, Michael was in the hospital again. Because this is like, because he had come, that was because Michael, okay, so that year was crazy, just in general,
for sure.
Yeah.
For us, because that year Michael had been in the hospital he went in the hospital on January the like 1st. We were there New Year's Eve, New Year's Eve. So he was in the hospital January 1st, and was admitted. After that admission, was admitted 3 other times after that. So we had finally gotten him on the, he was on the mend. And then we find out that she's pregnant. And then she has babies. And then my sister, who she was already married, but her wedding
was happening right after
that August. So then the night of her wedding, I had to take Michael back to the hospital.
Mhm.
So he was admitted again. And then that November, he was admitted again to the hospital. So it was just a lot going on
That's a lot. Yeah.
in 2017. But he had come when Michael was in the hospital at January. That's when he had come because he was in the hospital they worked in. So he had come by to, see him and everything. And then you find out she's pregnant and you ghost us pretty much. You just like,
mind you, nobody in my
nobody has
family
ever
been rude,
been
none
rude
of
or
that. Everybody
anything.
was very open.
Yeah, so he created
and accepting.
And he hasn't helped any way financially taking care of them?
No.
You haven't wanted to push that whatsoever?
I've never felt the need to. Like, I've had a lot of people ask me that and like try to push it, like, you should be doing this because he's not helping. And for me, I'm like, I knew very early on when I found out that I was pregnant that it was never going to be something that he was going to do, was be present or help in any way. So I just kind of like prepared myself for that, and I did what I needed to do because I was like, I don't like, if you're showing me now that you're not gonna do what you're supposed to do, then I don't think like
it's just kind of like not worth the fight of it.
Yeah, and I
kind of like God will deal with him in His own way.
Put Taylor and Teagan through that because I'm like, they don't, whatever you have going on, they don't deserve that, and I don't want to put them through that because I know that can be a very lengthy kind of process. And I was like, I don't want to go through that. I don't want to put them through that. At the time too, I'm like, I'm still in school trying to get my degree. Like I don't want to do any of that.
Yeah, and I told her, too. I said, whatever decision you make, it's your decision. And I was like, I've not, my experience, like people would tell me that, oh, you need to put on. I was like, as long as, but I didn't have that with, I have two, children's fathers or whatever. But I was like, I didn't believe, you know what you did.
Yeah.
So take care of your responsibility. I don't feel like I should have to chase you down to do that. And I'm like, I'm gonna have to do my part regardless.
Yeah.
To whatever you do or don't do. But in my situation, they were present and did what they needed to, did what they were supposed to do. And so like that was one of my, like kind of thoughts about her. I was like, she's never not known her dad.
Yeah.
She's never not had her, her dad. And I was like, how is she going to be able to explain this to her children? I was like, because she doesn't know what that's like to not have her dad. I was like, but I would tell us all you can do is tell the truth.
Yeah.
It's like all you can do I said, when and if they ask, all you can do is tell them the truth. And I was like, you don't have to bash anybody to be honest.
Yeah.
Which I don't mention. I quite literally don't speak on him at all.
Yeah.
I don't talk to him. I don't talk about him. That's just never been my thing. And like I said, I had too much going on. Like I'm a mom now. I'm trying to finish school. I have other things to focus on. I don't have time to figure out what somebody is or is not gonna do. Like we're beyond that.
Good for you.
I did a lot of praying about it too. I was like, if you
didn't have resentment.
No, well, I will say, I will say, in the earlier stages, I was kind of like, I don't understand.
Yeah.
Like I don't understand at all. Why you would like you're fully aware, but you're not going to do what you're supposed to do. That just didn't make sense to me. But I ultimately decided that maybe it's not for me to understand. Kind of kept that going, but God just kept talking to me. The Holy Spirit just kept talking to me, and it was just kind of like I always feel if I wasn't equipped to do this, God would have never placed it in my lap. Like he never would have put it on my front door.
Yeah.
So that's just the thing that I live by every day because I'm like I haven't had to have like everything has always been provided. Like
of course.
It makes sense. So I'm like I haven't needed it, and we.
You froze.
Yeah, so what I was saying is that I would pray for them even before they got here, that the Lord would shield them from any feelings or spirits of abandonment and rejection. Because even with us being in the womb, we can feel that, say like we can feel that. Because we're, even if we don't understand it, we're present, because we exist and we can hear, things going on around us. We can feel things. So that was one of the things that I would pray over them, is that they wouldn't feel that, whether he decided to become a part or he decided not to.
Yeah.
That door was always left open.
Yeah, and for her to be able to just be honest with them and tell them the truth, whenever they brought it up or asked.
And they've asked, but it's not like often or anything like that. Like they asked when they were like a little bit smaller, when they were actually able to talk a little bit better. They asked then, and I told them the truth then. And I think they've only asked like maybe once or twice after that, but it hasn't been something that they're just kind of like badgering or anything, because I genuinely don't feel like they recognize the difference at all. Just because they have so many people around them pouring into them and all of that. So we've been blessed in that area, but it hasn't always been easy. It hasn't always been easy. Like take the finances out of it, because God provides whatever we need anyway. But just
Amen.
Being a young mom, trying to maintain like work, being a mom of two, and still in school to get a degree, it's not for the faint of heart. But I did it. And I maintained my grades, great grades throughout that whole thing, and
changed her career option.
Yeah, changed my career option. And then got my degree, and life has just been.
So you have your degree now. So you graduated.
I did graduate, have my degree. They were three when I got.
Well, that's awesome. Congratulations. So do you work in the field of your degree?
Not yet. Not
I always ask that because I feel like for some reason usually you don't.
A lot of people
don't to begin with. What's your degree in?
Social work.
So
that's cool.
She was doing education.
Yeah, I initially was doing. She was elementary
education, and then she got to the place where she was doing her intern. Like
I was actually about to graduate.
She was. So,
and then I changed my major.
Yeah, so she was in the school system, and she was like, I don't know that I want to be in the classroom like every day. Yeah, I still want to work with children, but and then she was like, okay, so she changed.
But I found myself,
so that's what prolonged it, because she changed.
When I was doing these internships at schools, I found myself spending more time like the school counselors and the school social workers than I was actually the teachers that I was supposed to be with. So I was like, maybe, and just seeing how they handle things, I was like, I think this is more of my lane, speed, my lane. And just because like a lot of teachers, a lot of educators then weren't, to me, it didn't feel like they were doing it for the right reasons. Like we actually want to make a difference or change things, that I something about that just didn't sit well with me. So it's like I changed it. Did it make my process a little longer? Yeah.
Well, but that's okay. You want to be in the field where you can actually utilize it and prosper, and grow from that. That's awesome though. You have a lot of mannerisms and things like Miss Donna. Well, I know that you would be great at probably being in like social work and something like that. Yeah, I could definitely see that.
That's where my heart is, helping and being passionate. Now I think the greatest gift is just being a mom, like just the ins and out of being a mom. I tell my mom all the time, I talk about it all the time, about how the school will, if they need anything, they'll call me, or if they need anything wrong, they'll call me. And I'm like, oh, they're always calling me, but I don't think I would have it any other way. I'm just like, please call me, let me know what's going on. So I do I do enjoy that part of it, and just this whole journey into momhood has just kind of been something else entirely, a whole different entity. And I also tell my mom this. I'm like, I'm literally like a kid raising a kid. Like I'm too childish to be a parent. It's kind of crazy.
I think we grow, I had Bentley, my oldest, who's
Mhm.
now 11. So I had her at, I'm trying to think, 24.
Mhm.
I'm 35. She's 11. So yeah, 24. Yeah, I gotta think about that. And then I had my boys, I guess, at 25. So it is difficult as a young parent when you have kids and you still feel like a kind of like a child yourself.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I'm still learning and growing. I don't think that
Yeah.
stops.
Mm-mm.
It never does.
Yeah. Just managing that, like being a mom, working, school, and also like maintaining like a personal life. Like it took me a long, long, long time to get back to even dating and
Yeah.
anything like that. So like just that whole process in and of itself too was just kind of like, what am I doing? Like, what am I doing here? I'm engaged now, but
Oh, are you?
I
Oh,
am. Thank
congratulations.
you. But
So
that,
tell us a little bit about how that happened.
oh my. Well,
Because hold on, how old are the twins now?
they are 7. They are 7 now. I got engaged last Christmas Eve last year. But he's amazing. I've known him for over 10 years. We went to high school together, went to prom together, that whole
Oh,
thing.
that's
So
cool.
So they reunited.
Yeah.
so we graduated. We both went our separate ways. He went off and he has 2 gorgeous daughters. And then I went off and had 2 gorgeous daughters, and then we just
Oh
kind of,
my, oh me, oh me.
and
Y'all
we
have
just kind of,
you're gonna have a house full of girls.
oh yeah.
It's insane.
Oh, God bless you.
God bless him. God bless him.
Yes, God bless
Um,
him.
but this has always been somebody who I, felt comfortable enough to tell kind of like some of the stuff that went on in my life that not a lot of people knew about at all. Just just kind of always had that
That's beautiful.
kind of banter and all that. And he
Like
was
a best
Feet
friend.
first.
yeah, he makes me do things that I don't want to do. As far as like self-reflecting and all of that. So we've grown a lot as individuals with
Together as well.
yeah, he's like my best friend.
I love that. I
Yeah,
think that's so beautiful.
and the
Um,
girls love him.
Love him.
Because if they didn't, he couldn't be
Yeah,
here.
he wouldn't be around anymore.
yeah.
They love him and he loves them. It's just I remember the first time my mom got to actually see him in kind of like that mode with them. We were all on the field trip and I knew I was like, she's going to be watching what he does because
Yeah.
It's just who I am.
she's a grandma. She just has to know how it
Yeah,
works.
but she's mama too, so she's
That
gonna
too.
be protective over you and those
Yeah.
girls because she knows what you deserve.
I
Yes.
knew when she kind of like left, kind of like because we were all kind of hanging out. She kind of left kind of early. I was like, she's fine. Like she's okay.
Yeah.
Like
I
she's
was like,
okay.
they're in good hands. Yeah,
Like, she's
because
okay.
yeah, because it really would have like he wouldn't be able to stay
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
the girls didn't take to him and yeah, because I would be vocal about that like
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know
But I'm also that way too. I've never just brought anybody just around them. Just and that's strictly like I'm that type of person. Like I'm not the most people person ever. Like I'm just not,
what we
in the
so
realm
she's
of
not super social.
in the realm of just having
I would say
everything
you may
all the
have some
time.
social anxiety if you were like that with the doctor's office.
Yeah.
Or something.
Just a little bit. Just a little bit. But I've always kind of kept like the same people around me. So I've never like intentionally ventured out to make new friends or do anything like that. And if the friends that I have now, most of them have just kind of flocked to me.
Yeah.
But yeah, in the same way that she said she would have known and been like, yeah, no, we can't do that. I'm the same way. So had I not felt like that it was like a safe space, I would have been like, yeah, no, I don't care how much history we have. You're not gonna be here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then my dad got to experience him like in that moment. Because my dad came to a field day that they had at the school, and he left early, and I was like, okay, because he would not. My dad for sure would have not left if he didn't feel like even remotely a little bit comfortable with the situation. But he left early, and I was like, okay, we're good. Everything's fine. We're fine.
What do
And
you think that you learned from the experience of kind of experiencing motherhood early on, not alone but without, a partner, navigating all of those changes until now? It just seems like you got like, maybe you didn't get it the way that you thought you're gonna have like your happy ending or whatever, but like, you were it's here now. So what do you think you learned? Do you think that you maybe God was preparing you to be more equipped to be ready for it now? Does
I
that
do.
make
I think
sense?
I
Maybe I'm not
knew.
asking that the way it's coming
No,
out.
I get it. I think for me, I now have a clear understanding that what's for me will be for me. But like I feel like I needed to go through that whole
Mm-hmm.
season of doing it by myself and learning to like, okay, you have to do this by yourself. Like you're a mom and you have to kind of figure out all of this by yourself. And it kind of just made me learn a lot more about myself. I think it made me get more in tune with what I wanted out of life, but also like how I wanted to live my life and just know me. Because I don't think before having them, like I had an idea of the person I was, but like I don't think I really truly took the time to just kind of sit and be with myself and learn more about myself. So that kind of gave me the opportunity to do that.
Yeah.
And then I got to do things on my own terms, like later down the line, which I think like it was more so I was able to think for myself and not have like the outside influence or anything like that. So I was able to make the decisions that I wanted to make and make them like for me and for them as well, but mostly for me, and feel confident in those and comfortable with those. Oh, excuse me. So I think that's what that whole experience, like that's what I've learned, is to just be more confident in the decisions that I make and just know that I'm making the best decisions for myself. But also it's what I needed to do because now I'm in a better situation. I have a lot more self-awareness.
Yeah, I love
didn't
that though,
Yeah.
because I always feel like we can grow from those, from pain, not necessarily painful experiences, but just say
Mhm.
difficult experiences. Maybe things
Yeah.
that we didn't know that we needed, but we needed at that time. I just
Yeah.
like looking back, things that I thought was very difficult. I now can look back and say, I can see why I had to go through that and
Mhm.
experience that, because I feel like it helps shape your character and kind of
Yeah.
where God wants to place you in today, even in the present moment, but also to get you ready for what he has for your future. So when
Right.
you kind of like look at it like that, it's like it's always God's ways are much higher than our
Mhm.
ways, and he's always putting the pieces together even when we
Yeah.
don't know how they're going to fit.
Because I was
Yeah.
it was a lot of stuff like that I was able to talk to my mom about even after having them like so much recently that I had not like dealt with and kind of talked about, but I had to kind of like talk about it and come to grips with it during that whole little season where I was by myself and having to figure it out, because a lot of it kind of like shaped my mindset and how it was doing things, and it was mostly out of fear.
Oh, that's good.
Um, so I had to kind of like deal with those things, like a lot of stuff that I just was not ready to talk about, or like kind of had to
Yeah.
feel those outside of like just some past traumas and all of that that
Hmm.
I had to deal with. And I'm like, I don't want to inherently kind of like push those off on my kids, because
Yeah.
that can happen. So it's like
Mhm.
I need to fix that in me so I don't do it to them and I don't push that on them, or push that narrative or be so overprotective that I'm not like seeing the bigger picture and things like that. So it was a lot that I had to kind of sit and be like, okay, I have to deal with this thing that caused me trauma and move on from it, and that way I can be the best person I can be, but I can also be the best mom I can be because they deserve that.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yes.
That's
You have
good.
to deal with those things. Yeah, because I when they were, I don't remember how old they were, but I was like, you need to go and you need a counselor. And she was like, well, I talked to you. I said, no, you need a you need a
Why would I do
counselor.
that? I have you.
No, not me. Like you need a
No, not me. You need
yeah,
someone else.
you need to go and talk to someone else because I'm like what you've experienced and what you're going through. I'm like there's stuff that can be attached to it, and like I said, when we don't deal with things from our past too, it can come into the present and have you moving in ways that it's like you don't quite understand it or really know why you're doing the things you're doing, but there's a reason behind it.
Yeah.
But it's like somebody helping you to navigate and see, like it was so funny. The other day I had to go to the psychologist,
Yeah.
and he asked me, like, because this was a new psychologist that I was seeing, so he it's getting my history and stuff. And so as I'm talking to him, he was like, he asked me like a few times, like 2 to 3 times, like, had I ever had like mental health like issues? I was like, no. I was like, no, I told you. I'm
Yeah.
like, well, no. I said, well, but I've only, I've had a grief counselor and I've had, like another psychologist.
Yeah.
Um, and he was like, oh, okay. So he was like, man, because like when I said, he was like, well, that was enough right there.
Yeah.
I was like, well, that was enough right there. And I was like, well, yeah, but like that happens. So I was like, either he thinks just really out there, or
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
or or he's just can't believe that, oh my gosh, you're not insane,
Yeah.
based on my life history.
Yeah, of course.
But I'm like, no, like I think I'm okay. I mean, you might think otherwise. I don't know what your little test will.
Yeah.
I don't know what your little test will tell, but whatever.
Well, I don't know what that's telling you, but I know
Yeah,
what I think.
yeah, I think I'm cool. I think I've handled things pretty
Yeah.
good. Yeah. Look, I think I've gotten past my life experiences, but it is like it can be like when somebody, just says, and like now when I think about it, I was like, I probably, just to be honest, I probably would I was like, if they had to like go like with him, look like
Yeah.
with their biological dad, I'd be like, oh man,
Yeah.
okay, I've got to go with them,
Like we all gotta go, yeah.
we're all gotta go, they can't go by themselves. I was like, I wonder how we would have reacted if he was actually present.
Yeah.
We talk about it too, like now too. I'm like, because like I said, I've always left the door open for, if you want to be present, you always have the opportunity to do that, because I'm never going to take that away from them. So we talk about it now. We're like, y'all, like, if he was to decide that he wanted to be a parent and he's like, oh, can I get the girls for the weekend? We're just like, you can come here. Like, you can come here and take them. I don't know.
I was like, we'd have to really get used to. And so
Yeah.
like so that November when Michael was in the hospital after they were born,
Yeah.
we saw him. So me and Michael had gone to the cafeteria because he could walk, at that point he could walk down to the cafeteria. And so we had gone down just to get him outside of the room and whatever to get something to eat. And he was I was like, that looks like, even though I hadn't seen him that much, I was like, that looks like, him. So he was standing like behind us. And I could, how you can tell that somebody seems kind of nervous.
Yeah.
By you, like they're fidgety, they're nervous. So this is how he was, like standing in, like, so he recognized,
He recognized you, yeah.
and so he was just very fidgety. And so me and Michael were trying to decide what we wanted. So I said, you can come in front of us, like we're trying to decide. And he was like, are you sure? And I said, yeah, I'm sure. Come on. And so he looked like he had seen a ghost at that
Yeah.
point.
Definitely.
And so I was like, I'm pretty sure this is him. And somebody
Hmm.
said his name in the line. And I
Uh,
knew it was him. I was like, okay. But I didn't say anything to him. So I told Niko, I was like, well, I saw, they're about, she was like, you did? Like, did you? I was like, no, I wasn't there. I'm not there for that. I said, I'm not here to chase anybody down.
Yeah.
I'm not here to bother you in any kind of way. I was like, but he was visibly spooked because he
yeah.
kept, like, and I was over here talking to I was talking to a friend after we were waiting for our food. I
Hmm.
was there talking to a friend who actually had twins. Um,
Um,
and I was like, hey, I was like, yeah. So I was talking to him, and I'm like, oh yeah, like I said, well, how are your children doing? And he was like, oh, they're good. And it was like, what's I said, well, like I was like, I have, twin granddaughters now. And he was like, oh man, like that's cool, And so like when, because he kept kind of like looking over, at me,
mhm.
but I'm like, dude, I'm not here to bother you. And then I had when I had was gone from the foundry for that period of time, I
Mhm.
worked at UAB2 in addition to working at Brookwood. I worked at UAB2 in the psych ward, and that's where he worked. So when I was doing and so I didn't know that, so
I see
that
a
day I
patient. No,
had
I'm
to,
just playing.
yeah, so like I had to do like proctor, I had to go on every floor and be oriented to every floor. And so during that time I was on the doing my orientation on that particular floor that he worked on. And there again, you would think he saw a ghost, but I'm like, dude, I'm not here for you. I'm here working. Um,
Hmm.
but he made sure he stayed away from it. And so he sat over in the corner with a hood on, like the entire day, like sit like over
12
there with
hours
good.
of
And
uncomfortableness.
yeah, and it was, yeah, because it was a 12-hour shift. And so there was something that the guy, and he's like, well, he may know what it is, go up there and ask him. And he said his name is such and such. I was like, oh. I acted like I didn't know.
Yeah.
I said, oh, okay. So I went over there and I was like, hey, he said he ma'am, like I was like, I'm just asking you about work. I'm not saying anything else to you.
Yeah.
You do not have to be spooked,
Yeah.
by me. But it was just like like
Well, and I think too, like he knows,
yeah,
and like that's something that like he'll have to deal with on
Yeah.
his
yeah,
own terms and in
yeah.
his own way. Because I just don't see how you can like have children, have your children,
Right.
and then disappear and act like you don't. Like
Right.
I like
And I've seen them.
Yeah.
Like I actually took the girls to the fair. And it was like me and the rest of a good bit of our family and some more kids, and we took them to the fair. And I saw him. Why? Like, so he saw me, and he saw them, and I spoke, and he did not speak back. Now he was standing about as close as me and my mom are sitting. So like
really.
Yeah.
you see me, So I spoke, and we got there early. We were out there for a long time, and it was like that was the first and last time I seen him, because it was kind of like he saw a ghost and then he left. Like, I was like, we know you just came in here because we saw you when you were coming in here, but we did not see him that in the rest of the time we were there. And I was like, he had to have left. Like, you're walking in a circle. We don't see you left. Like, we didn't
Yeah.
have to leave.
Yeah. Like nobody's bothering you.
Nobody,
Like,
we don't care.
nobody's gonna, yeah, like I'm like, you're because like you say, you're gonna have to that
Like
Like,
yeah,
he's gonna have to answer for that.
yeah.
But I
yeah,
love the way that you've handled it, because I don't know if I would have handled it as well, but I just feel like you handled the situation very well.
It took me
Um
to get there.
and just very mature about it.
Mm-hmm.
Because I know that like that human, that flesh part of us would want to be like resentful and
Mm-hmm.
like, hey, like you need to come and be a father and help me do this. Because as I mean, I have helped, I have us, but I have the father to my kids, and it's still difficult.
Oh yeah.
So when you're having to do that, I couldn't imagine having to do that like on my own.
And it took me a long time
Much respect.
with me being engaged now, but when he first came around, it took me a long time for me to even like allow him to help with anything because he's always been like, whatever you need, just let me know, I'll help. And I'm like, no, I got it. No, it's cool, I got it. No,
Yeah.
okay, I got it. And he's like, you're not in this thing by yourself anymore. Like, you
Yeah.
have help. Just let me help you. And it took me a long time to be like, do I got to? Because I was so used to just doing it and like make sure everything got done. Like I'm just a get it done type of individual anyway. So I was like, anything that I've needed done, I'm like, it's done. It's done already. Um, so he's like, we had a whole lot of conversations before we got engaged, brother. Because like, I'm here, let me help you. I'm trying to help you. They're like, no, I got it.
Yeah.
Cool,
I could see that. I could see how it would be difficult though.
Oh yeah,
But
very.
also, it would just make things so much easier once you just allow somebody to come in and kind of help.
Yeah,
Because that's about partnership. You're
yeah.
there.
Which I had to learn. I had to learn that.
Yeah.
I had to learn it. Now I'm just like, you can do it.
Yeah.
You got it. I'm not doing that.
Yeah. Like now you're like, go ahead.
Yeah, feel free.
Please do this.
Like,
I don't want to do this.
Yeah. I don't want to do it. So if you want to do it, just go right ahead.
And they respond so well to him. Anything that's ever needed or anything that he does, they just respond so well to it. It did grind my gears a little bit. Because anything that he can tell them, I'm like, now I've been with you since you were born. He just got here.
Yeah.
And you're already, I'm like, they don't listen to me. And then he'll come in and he'll say anything, and they're just like, okay. I'm like,
I think that's like a mom thing because I was just having that conversation with Eric. I was like, you're gonna have to like help me out here because they don't listen to me. And
listen to me.
I'm like, because I feel like I repeat it like 5 different
Yeah.
times. So like, do something,
please.
Because I've found looking them in the eye, I'm like, hey,
you said, hey,
stop it.
yeah,
And they go, and then they'll stop. But like if I call them, if I'm in another room and I call them, they're not coming immediately.
oh no,
I'm like, they don't think I want anything because I'm just, calling your name. So I'm like, I've learned to go, hey, such and such, come here and do this. And then it's like, okay, she literally wants me to do something.
yeah.
And I believe they're like that because sometimes their mother, i.e. Niko, will just call their name and she wants nothing from them. Okay. She just calls their name.
Just because, they do it to me. So
Yeah.
And it's because she's petty like that,
Call my name, so
You said they call my name, so I just call their name.
Call there sometimes.
She just calls their name and wants absolutely nothing. So they
did they come? Did they run in?
No, they don't.
It does take a minute. It does. Now, well, I'll say this. Taylor asks
you what you want.
Taylor's the one who's gonna push the envelope. She'll yell
like,
from the other room.
Want?
She's not gonna come yet.
She'll yell from the other room, what do you want?
Depending upon what you need.
Yeah.
If you need anything, she'll come. Teagan, she'll come. Teagan will always come just because Teagan, that's just who she is. Now, Taylor, she's not. It depends on what you want.
Cares about it.
I love that.
It has to be something
twins are so fascinating.
Yes. They're completely different and they flip flop at times. Yeah. They're it's like their little personalities will switch.
Yeah.
At times. But it's been so fun. A friend of mine who has twins also, like when they were little bitty, she was like, if y'all make it till when they're 6, then you're good.
Yeah.
You're right.
She was like, if they're 6 and you've all survived, you'll be fine.
It's been a blur. It's all been a blur.
I was like, oh man.
It does get easier though, I will say.
Yeah.
The older they are, the easier it gets.
I'm seeing that now.
Just because, and the only thing is just because they gain more independence.
Yeah.
So because you just think about it, you're not like changing one diaper, you're having to change 2. You're not having to help put on one pair of shoes, or what I'm saying. You're having all the work is like double.
They've always been like it's so crazy, but like they've developed more quickly than any of their like children that I've ever seen.
That's
So
cool.
I feel like they became like kind of self-sufficient pretty early on, and I'm like, you don't need me anymore. Why? Please need me.
Yeah.
Need me. I'll never forget the day Teagan was in there putting on her shoes, and I was like, "Here, let me help you." I'm gonna tie them. She's like, "No, mommy, I got it." And I cried like the rest of the day. I was like, "Why? Why do you have it?
They
Please
don't-
don't have it. Let me have it for you."
Yeah.
They've
That's
been
cool.
a rambunctious bunch since they got here.
Very sassy.
Um,
Very sassy.
and they say and do stuff that I'm like, where'd you
You
get
wouldn't
that
expect
from?
it.
What are you?
They're funny.
I'm pretty sure Taylor was about 3
I've always called
2
them
to 3
old ladies.
when she told my mom that she looked utterly
No,
ridiculous.
she was a year and a half.
She was young, but she told my mom that she
A
looked
year and a
utterly
half.
ridiculous, and that has kind of stuck with us. She's like,
What?
Yes, I got in the car. Hope.
I love this.
All I did was get in the car,
yeah.
and she was in the back with her little car seat, and she goes, "Nana, ooh, what ridiculous." I said, "What?" And she got utterly ridiculous. I said, "Oh, what did I do to you? All I've done is got in the car."
She said no.
Where do you even get that? Oh, yeah. How do you even know what utterly is? How do you even know that utterly? You're a year and a half.
That is hilarious.
I said, who talks to their grandmother that way?
It's
what kind of
Taylor.
baby are you?
Taylor, yeah.
That
She's
is so
very-
funny.
I was
Very
like,
sassy, very
you've been
put
insulting
together.
me.
Yeah.
You can talk, and I don't like it.
It's such
They're,
a
but you know,
thing.
they're so, the kids are like, you know, they're so they're
Oh yeah.
they can just be very honest. It's like, don't ask them a question you don't want to hear
Oh,
th-
yeah.
No,
their
no,
an-
she
their
does not.
their answer to. Like they're raw. I mean, not saying that it's truth, but it's what they perceive to be true. Because they're gonna tell you.
And what I've noticed is it is true.
What's wilder is that
Most of the
is
time
true.
it is.
It's true.
Do what now?
Taylor, it's always going to be true. She doesn't hold back ever.
Now, in that vein, I did not look ridiculous, but so she wasn't telling. I don't know. She was just having a moment that day, I guess.
She was being who she is.
But like she told my mom when she was like 2 that she asked her, she said, "What are you?" She was running through her house,
yeah.
and she said, "What are you doing?" And she stopped and she said, "Obviously, Gigi, I'm running." That's what she said to her great grandmother.
Yes.
She told her
She's sassy.
Oh, a big ball of it.
Since she could talk, she's been this way.
She said, obviously, like kind of like, duh, don't you see what I'm doing?
Obviously, Gigi, I'm running.
And she is the one who's going to, she's going to absolutely argue with you. Absolutely. She doesn't get tired of it.
Yeah.
Part of the reason why we love her so much.
Of course.
I was like, I love her on it. So she's not like not like a mean sassy.
She's
she's just says stuff, and you're like, number one, how do you know?
Why would you say that?
How would they even put that together?
Yeah.
First off, and then you're like a tiny person, so like, what is that? Yeah, like she just says. She says wild things. She's been saying wild things.
She gives my dad a run for his money.
Speak.
Like me and my daddy clash, but it's like it's always a funny clash. But him and her.
Oh, I bet that's hilarious.
Oh, they're at odds all the time.
They argue. I'm like, why are you arguing with a 7-year-old? Like, this has to stop somewhere.
Teagan's just as loving as she can be.
The sweetest little pea.
She just loves you. She checks on you. She wants to know. She asked me when she was about 1.5 years to 2. She said, "Nana, what are you thinking of? What are she asked me, was I happy first? She said, "Are you happy?
Are you happy?"
And I said, "Yeah, I think so." She said, "Well, what are you thinking about?" And
she's like a little philosopher.
Yeah,
she's a little empath. So sweet.
She is.
I hadn't thought about it, but let me think about it, and I'll let you know. I hadn't been thinking about what I was thinking about.
Yeah.
Give me a moment, but I'll let you know.
I've always been so sweet. She's just the sweetest little girl. Always caring, looking out for everybody around her.
Yeah.
Aww.
Sweetest pea. And then there's her sister, who's just like.
And then Taylor is the one that's a little bit feisty.
Yeah. She is feisty.
Very.
So she's not going to check on you if you're having a bad day.
Yeah, no,
She'll ask, but it won't
be in like
it'll be
more it'll be more like what's your problem and get it together
pretty much.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, I don't know why you're in that state, but change it, get it together.
Isn't that so interesting? I think it's so funny. I love to see the dynamics of different personalities like that, especially in children, because I love kids and I love to watch how differently they communicate.
Yes. It is
funny.
fun to watch.
Yeah.
It is amazing.
Such beautiful kids. So yeah, that's my whole spiel.
Well, thank you for coming on. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed your story. You definitely have a story of resilience and hope. And I love like that you shared all that, and now you're engaged. Do you have a date? You're getting married, or
we're looking at December of next year because everything just kind of happened in December. At first we were thinking earlier, but the more we sat on it, we don't want to do like a big wedding.
Yeah,
that's not.
They're just not that type of person.
We're not those
okay
people.
So I gotta change the date now because you told me that I've been telling people the wrong date.
We had initially wanted to do September, but because everything just kind of happened in December for us, like we started dating in December, we got engaged in December. To us, it just kind of makes sense to do the whole thing in December. We just like, it makes sense. So that's what we're looking to do, but nothing too huge because we're just not those people. We don't really do the whole let's throw a big thing and have everybody be present. Like we're just not those people.
That's what I told.
Just do what works for you.
That's what
I mean. It's for you at the end of the day.
And that's what I told her. I said, I was like, you're not. I was like, now my youngest son, socialite. Okay, that's him. I was like, I could see him having
an elaborate.
Yeah, I was like, but I was like, I used to have to beg her almost because I would do like birthdays when they had like bigger, like their like milestone birthdays.
Yeah.
We would do like a party or, I'd ask them, and every time I'd be like, well, what do you want a party? No. Like, no, I don't.
You sound like my daughter.
Yeah,
she doesn't want to do any of that stuff.
Yeah, like a smaller kid. So I was like, she's like me in that.
I just prefer to be around the people I'm closest to, having a good time. Like I'm not an over the type person, but I've also never been the type that's like, even when I was in college, I wasn't the type that's like, oh, let's go out. And like, I would go out with my friends, but it was never something that I was just like, please. Yes. Yeah. My life revolves around this.
She's not a huge crowd kind of people. She's more of an intimate setting. So I was like, do what you want to do.
I'm like that too, though. I kind of just like my people. I mean, I can endure those environments, but usually I'm very drained afterwards.
Oh yeah. Because I am not.
I mean, I feel like I can adapt. I'm pretty adaptable, so I can adapt to kind of different settings to whatever I need. But I am very empathic as well. So I do find myself, if I'm ever in those settings, then the recharge is a lot longer.
Oh yeah. My social battery declines almost rapidly.
Yeah.
Almost rapidly. But I'm also engaged to somebody who is like everybody's person. Like he is.
Oh really? That's fun. He's gonna drag you around to say hey to everyone.
He's like everybody's favorite person, and I'm like, I don't want to do that.
But that's how her dad is. He is not a big crowd type of person. He's like intimate group of people. Small numbers, and I can be in either. I don't.
Yeah, I feel like you can adapt. You're pretty much with whatever the flow is.
Yeah, I can be in a large crowd, small crowd. It doesn't matter. And what I have noticed about myself is that I'll circle, and like if it's a large amount, like I'm gonna make sure I talk to like pretty much everybody in the room. And I never thought of myself as that type of person, but I've noticed it, as of late. I'm like, I do that.
You are absolutely a socialite.
And like people have, said like, well, when they wanted to get together,
It's funny because it's like, I don't mean to interrupt you, but your person's personality is very calm and nurturing and very like, but also very social too, but not in the social of like, I have to be like the center of attention.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's exactly,
Yeah.
like that's exactly how I am. And people like would say like, oh well, we want to get together. Donna, can you organize it? And I'm like, why do you want me to? Because you're good at like getting us connecting us. And I'm like, I didn't ever see that, like
Yeah.
but I'm like, well, whenever I do like say like, hey, let's get together, like most they'll come.
Yeah.
Like I'm like people will come. But I'm like it's just cool to hang out, like
Yeah.
but that's I've noticed that I'm like, oh well, okay, that is a strength, I guess, that I have. Well, it's actually, and then when I did this strengths finders test one time, and that was actually the number one strength that I had was connectedness. And I was like, oh,
it makes sense.
it
Yeah.
makes sense. Yeah,
it tracks.
It does track. But awesome, thank you, Moniko.
Yes, thank
if
you.
anybody wants to see what my story came about, these are my little people.
Yes,
they're so cute. I have seen them passing when I would be talking to Miss Donna on here when we were just chit-chatting, not on record, by the way.
You're good. I wouldn't have minded anyway,
but they are sweet, but I love it because I can tell that they are little busybodies.
Yes.
Oh, absolutely.
And they just remind me, I'm just like taken back to like that age when my kids were that age and when they were just kind of they're just busy. They're just busy. They're just busy,
Yeah, that is absolutely.
But they're sweet. They're very, they're always like, hi.
Yes. They're like,
oh, there.
Hi. There's one with a bonnet.
That's
why they were
there's two
with a bonnet.
They hi.
In jammies and bonnets.
Yes.
You're on a show with jammies.
Y'all want to say hey?
Y'all say hi.
Hi.
Tell them who you are. Who are you?
Taylor.
Taylor what?
Moore.
What's your full name?
Taylor Moore.
What's your name?
Teagan and Moore.
All right. That is Taylor and Teagan.
Okay, come back this way.
They're gonna have their own show one day. I've given them a theme song since they were little tykes.
I believe it.
Yes. So they will go that way with your bonnet on. Just hanging out drinking water.
Well, y'all been like MIA for a couple hours, so now they're like, we have to go. Yeah. What are they doing?
Like what's happening? We watched whatever we were watching long enough.
Yeah.
So thank you, Moniko, for coming on to the D-Hope podcast and sharing your story of these two little Billy angel babies, as Knox calls them. And come back anytime.
I will.
Yes, thank you so much.
Yes. And
thank y'all.
We will see you guys next time on another great episode of the D-Hope podcast. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.